the F-22 Raptor. It is without a doubt one of the most advanced, most secretive, most ludicrously expensive aircraft ever to take to the skies. But what about the person sitting in the cockpit? The pilot is the brain, the decision maker, the human element that turns this incredible machine from a very expensive glider into an apex predator of the air. So, you might be wondering, what does it cost to create one of those? This isn't just a matter of sending someone to a few classes and handing them the keys. The journey from a regular civilian to someone trusted with a national asset of this magnitude is one of the longest, most demanding, most expensive training pipelines on the planet. It's a process that filters thousands of hopefuls down to just a tiny handful of the elite. Every step is designed to test, to challenge, and to weed out anyone who isn't absolutely perfect for the job. And every single one of those steps comes with a hefty price tag attached. We're talking about a multi-year investment that involves universities, specialized military academies, a fleet of different training aircraft, the most advanced simulators ever created. The final bill is staggering, a number that sounds more like a lottery jackpot than a training budget for a single person. So today, let's break it down. We're going to follow the money from the first day of college to the moment a pilot is finally certified to fly the F-22 Raptor in a combat squadron. This journey is a fascinating look into the economics of modern national security. The United States Air Force doesn't see this as an expense. They see it as an investment. An investment in a person who will be responsible for a piece of technology that gives them an unparalleled edge in any potential conflict. The pilot is, in many ways, more valuable than the plane itself. After all, you can build another F-22, production line closed, but you cannot instantly create another pilot with a decade of training and experience. Let's find out. Before anyone can even dream of touching the controls of an F-22, they need to become an officer in the United States Air Force. You need a bachelor's degree. This is the first civilian cost. There are a few paths to get there. United States Air Force Academy in Colorado tuition technically free for cadets, but the cost to educate one cadet for 4 years, over $400,000. Alternatively, a future pilot might attend a civilian university and enroll in ROTC. The student might receive a scholarship from the Air Force. If they don't, they or their family are footing the bill. Costs can range around $100,000 at a state school to over $250,000 at a private institution. For our calculation, let's use a conservative average, $150,000, but a degree is not enough. You also have to complete officer training. For ROTC cadets, it's integrated into college years, culminating in a field training encampment. For those who attend officer training school after graduating, it's a 9.5-week program. The direct cost of running a student through officer training school is around $20,000, factoring in instructor pay, lodging, food, equipment, and the operational costs of the base. So let's tally up our initial costs. Air Force Academy, $400,000, ROTC, plus officer training school, around $170,000. We'll use the lower, more typical figure for our running total. At this stage, the candidate is a newly commissioned second lieutenant. They have a degree, they have their gold bars, but they are still a long, long way from the cockpit running total, $170,000. With a commission and a degree in hand, our aspiring pilot is now sent to the heart of Air Force aviation training. Specialized Undergraduate Pilot Training, or SUPT. This is a grueling 52-week program where students learn the fundamentals of military aviation. Before they even start, however, there is an introductory program called Initial Flight Training. This is where the Air Force screens candidates to see if they even have the basic aptitude for flying. It involves about 25 hours of flight time in a small, single-engine propeller plane like a Diamond DA-20. The cost for this program, including the aircraft, fuel, and civilian instructors, is roughly $30,000 per student. Once they pass initial flight training, they move on to Phase 1 and Phase 2 of SUPT, which takes place at one of several Air Force bases like Columbus in Mississippi or Vance in Oklahoma. The first 6 months are spent learning to fly the T-6A Texan II. This is a powerful tandem-seat turboprop aircraft that serves as the primary trainer for all Air Force pilots. The training is intense, involving classroom academics, long hours in simulators, and of course actual flying. Students will log about 80 to 90 hours in the T-6, learning basic maneuvers, instrument navigation, formation flying, and aerobatics. The cost of this phase alone is staggering. The T-6 itself costs about $4 million and its hourly operating cost is several $1,000s. The cost to run one student through the T-6 portion of SUPT is estimated to be around $500,000. This figure includes the student's officer salary, now around $50,000 per year, the salaries of their instructors, the fuel for the aircraft, extensive maintenance, and the immense cost of the simulator infrastructure. At the end of this phase, a pivotal moment occurs: track select. Based on their performance, their instructors' recommendations, and the needs of the Air Force, students are assigned to a specific track. Some will go on to fly large transport aircraft or tankers, some will fly helicopters, and the top performers, the best of the best, will be selected for the fighter or bomber track. This is the only path that leads to the F-22. Running total, $700,000. For the student pilots selected for the fighter track, for the student pilots selected for the bomber track, the next 6 months of SUPT are spent in the cockpit of the T-38 Talon. The T-38 is a sleek, twin-engine supersonic jet trainer that has been serving the Air Force since the 1960s. It is fast, nimble, and unforgiving, the perfect machine to prepare pilots for the rigors of flying high-performance fighters. This is where the training intensity and the costs ramp up significantly. Students will fly approximately 120 hours in the T-38, mastering advanced formation flying high-speed maneuvers, the basics of tactical intercepts. The jump from the T-6 turboprop to the supersonic T-38 is a massive leap in both performance and complexity. The cost associated with this phase is, predictably, much higher. The T-38, while an old airframe, is expensive to operate. Its hourly cost, including fuel, maintenance, and engine overhauls, is significantly more than the T-6. Estimates place the cost of running a student through the T-38 phase of training at around $600,000. This covers the student's salary, instructor pay, and the immense logistical tail required to keep a fleet of aging supersonic jets in the air. The maintenance crews for these aircraft are just as vital as the instructors. And their expertise is another hidden cost baked into this enormous training bill. Every flight hour is a carefully managed and very expensive resource. By the time a student completes the T-38 phase, they have successfully finished the 52-week specialized undergraduate pilot training program. They are presented with their silver wings, officially becoming a United States Air Force pilot. This is a monumental achievement, the culmination of over a year of relentless work and study. At this point, the total investment in this single individual has already crossed a significant threshold. Adding the T-6 phase at $500,000 and the T-38 phase at $600,000 to our initial costs, we find that earning those silver wings comes with a price tag of over $1 million per pilot. That's before they even get assigned to a specific fighter jet. F-16, F-15, F-35, F-22. Let's do the math. The initial $170,000 for their degree and commission, plus the $30,000 for initial flight training, and now the roughly $1.1 million for SUPT itself. This brings our grand total to just under $1.3 million. After earning their wings, our newly minted pilot is not yet ready for a frontline fighter squadron. Their next step is a course called Introduction to Fighter Fundamentals, or IFF. This is a critical bridge between the world of training jets and the world of actual combat aircraft. The course typically lasts about 8 to 9 weeks, designed to teach the core principles of being a fighter pilot: tactical maneuvering, situational awareness, the mindset required to employ airborne weapons. It is here that pilots learn the art of the dogfight, known as Basic Fighter Maneuvers, or BFM. They fly one-on-one against their instructors, learning to push their aircraft and themselves to the absolute limit. IFF is usually flown using a modified version of the T-38 Talon, often designated the AT-38B, equipped with a gun sight and other systems that simulate weapons employment. Over the course of about 50 flight hours, pilots learn to think and react in a three-dimensional, high-speed environment. Decisions are made in fractions of a second. They practice offensive maneuvers, defensive maneuvers, learning how to gain a positional advantage over an adversary, and how to survive when the tables are turned. This phase is less about basic flying skills, which are now assumed to be second nature, and more about instilling an aggressive, tactical mindset. It is the transition from pilot to warrior. Factoring in the pilot's salary, instructor pay, the operational cost of the AT-38B fleet, and the necessary ground support, the IFF program costs approximately $500,000 per student. At the conclusion of IFF, pilots finally receive their assignment to a specific major weapon system, or MWS. This is the moment of truth. Or, for the absolute cream of the crop, the F-22 Raptor, running total $1,800,000, $1.3 million plus $500,000. For the pilot selected to fly the F-22, the journey now takes them to Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida, home of the 43rd Fighter Squadron, the Hornets. This is where they'll undergo the F-22 B course, the formal training unit program that transforms an IFF graduate into a qualified Raptor pilot. Honestly, this is by far the most expensive phase. The course is an intense 9-month marathon, hundreds of hours of academic instruction, countless hours in the simulator, flying the actual F-22 Raptor. The sheer cost of operating this aircraft makes every minute incredibly valuable. The F-22 Raptor is a 5th-generation stealth fighter, and its complexity is orders of magnitude beyond anything the pilot has flown before. The B course starts with deep academic dives into the F-22 systems, advanced stealth characteristics, Pratt & Whitney F-119 engines, and APG-77 radar complex sensor fusion capabilities. Here's a fun fact: the F-22's software has over 1.7 million lines of code. Learning to manage these systems is just as important as learning to fly the jet. Then comes the flying. The B course includes approximately 60 to 80 live flight hours in the F-22. This is where the costs absolutely explode. According to Air Force data, the cost per flying hour for an F-22 Raptor is in excess of $85,000. That number includes fuel, extensive maintenance by highly specialized technicians, engine wear, parts replacement, and the vast support infrastructure needed to keep a stealth aircraft airworthy. So for a pilot flying, say, 70 hours during their B course, the cost for the flight time alone is nearly $6 million. This single phase of training costs more than 3 times everything that came before it combined. When you add in the pilot's salary, the salaries of the elite instructor pilots, the ground crew, and the massive cost of the simulator training that complements the live flying, the total cost for the F-22 B course is estimated to be a staggering $9 million per pilot. This 9-month program costs more than it does to train an entire squadron of F-16 pilots to a basic level of proficiency. It's an astronomical sum, but it's what's required to create a pilot capable of maximizing the potential of this unique and dominant aircraft. Upon graduation, they are finally a qualified F-22 wingman, ready to join a combat squadron. The running total so far, $10,800,000, $1.8 million, plus $9 million. While the live flying hours are the most visible and expensive part of F-22 training, a huge portion of a pilot's development actually happens on the ground, inside a machine that never leaves the hangar. We're talking about the F-22 Full Mission Simulator, or FMS. These are not the simple flight simulators you might have on your home computer. These are multi-million-dollar high-fidelity domes that replicate the cockpit and the entire sensory experience of flying the Raptor, down to the smallest detail. The pilot sits in an exact replica of the F-22 cockpit, surrounded by a seamless 360-degree projection of the outside world. The simulator can replicate everything from the feeling of acceleration to the specific sounds the landing gear makes. The simulator is where pilots can practice things that are just too dangerous, too secret, or too expensive to do in the real aircraft. They can practice emergency procedures, engine fires, hydraulic failures over and over until the response is pure muscle memory. More importantly, they can practice tactical scenarios against a vast array of simulated threats. A single pilot in a simulator can fly in a virtual 4-ship formation, with other pilots in other simulators fighting against dozens of advanced enemy aircraft, surface-to-air missile sites. This is something that could never be replicated in a live training environment due to cost, logistics, and safety constraints. The simulator is, honestly, the F-22's secret weapon for tactical development. A fun fact about the F-22's training is the concept of virtual constructive training. This means a live F-22 flying on a training range can be digitally linked to the simulator's back at base. The pilot in the air can see and interact with virtual wingmen and virtual enemy aircraft that only exist in the simulation. This allows the Air Force to create incredibly complex, large-scale training scenarios without having to put dozens of real aircraft in the sky. Graduating from the B course and being assigned to a combat squadron is not the end of the training. It is just the beginning of a new, continuous phase of it. To remain a proficient and combat-ready F-22 pilot, one must fly constantly. The Air Force requires its fighter pilots to log a certain number of flight hours each month to maintain their qualifications. For an F-22 pilot, this typically means flying between 10 and 15 hours per month. Using our conservative estimate of $85,000 per flight hour, this translates to a cost of between $850,000 and $1.275 million per pilot per year. Over a 10-year career in the Raptor, the Air Force will have spent an additional $10 million to $12 million on that single pilot, just to keep them ready. This brings the total lifetime investment in a senior F-22 pilot to well over $20 million. It's a number that really underscores the immense value the Air Force places on the human at the controls. Let's do the final calculation. We started with about $170,000 for a degree and officer commission. We added $30,000 for initial flight screening. Then came the big one, $1.1 million for specialized undergraduate pilot training on the T-6, on the T-38. After that, another $500,000 for introduction to fighter fundamentals, and finally, the colossal $9 million for the F-22B course. Adding it all up, the grand total to take a civilian and turn them into a brand new mission-qualified F-22 Raptor pilot is approximately $10,800,000. And that's a conservative estimate. Some sources would place the final number closer to $12 million. How does this compare to other professions? It costs about $300,000 to $500,000 to train a commercial airline pilot from scratch. The cost to educate a doctor, including medical school, is maybe up to $600,000. You could train roughly 20 commercial airline pilots or 20 doctors for the price of training one F-22 pilot. Even within the military, the cost is an outlier. Training an F-16 pilot costs around $6 million. That's still barely more than half the cost of an F-22 pilot. The Raptor is simply in a league of its own. So we arrive at the final critical question. Is it worth it? To the Air Force and strategists at the Pentagon, the answer is an unequivocal yes. The F-22 provides air dominance no other aircraft can reliably deliver. It's designed to be the first to fight, to kick down the door in a high-end conflict by sweeping the skies of enemy threats, letting friendly aircraft operate with relative safety. This capability is not just about the machine. It's about the pilot's ability to fuse information, make split-second decisions, and dominate a complex battle space. That skill doesn't come cheap. The $11 million pilot is the brain of a $150 million weapon system, responsible for executing a multi-billion-dollar national security strategy. In that context, the cost is seen as a necessary investment. It's the price of ensuring that when this machine is sent into harm's way, the person at the controls is the most well-trained, proficient, and lethal aviator money can buy. It's a staggering bill, but the cost of having the ultimate trump card in modern aerial warfare. The investment isn't just in a pilot, it's an investment in control